Hey there, fellow golf lovers, and welcome back to another episode of Tee Up with Kira. I'm your host, Miss Kira P. Today we have a fascinating topic for you, so grab your clubs, settle into your favorite chair, and let's tee off into the episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tee Up with Kira. I have an amazing and lovely guest I've known for many, many years, Dove. Dove, how are you today?
I'm good, Kira. How are you doing?
I am doing good. So we've known each other a long time, and I know that you are a golf travel expert. So how did you get involved in golf travel?
So I've always been involved in sports and sports marketing and travel. When I was 10, I bounced downstairs and announced to my parents I was going to camp in a foreign country by myself.
So what country was this? What country was this?
I ended up going to Canada. I thought I'd go to Ireland. They had these great horse riding camps, but I got to Canada. It was a foreign country, and it kind of went from there. I just have always had this travel bug and just really love the golf stuff, and so kind of put it all together.
That is so cool. So what is your tips and tricks for people that want to plan a golf travel, guys trip, women's trips? What are some of the things they should know and do if they, well, besides going to you for these trips, but what are some of tips and tricks?
So some of the tips and tricks are, one of them that I'm going to give you a special one and people are going to go, especially I deal a lot in international, and whether you're going internationally or domestically, tee times have become very precious, both in terms of availability and in terms of how much they're costing these days. COVID did great for the golf industry in certain ways, and in certain ways really kind of almost limit people, but there's tons and tons of tee times out there. What happens normally is people want to go, especially to the UK, they want to go in foursomes or eightsomes. The dirty little secret is that there's usually a tee time available for a twosome or a onesome. So if you're looking to go to St. Andrews or some of the big courses, the private ones next year even, they're almost out of tee times, believe it or not. The booking window has pushed so far forward. And not only that, they're expensive. Having said that, there's tons of tee times in the UK, fabulous links courses, maybe not the ones you've always heard of, but there's a lot of budget savers. There's just wonderful areas, and you actually get to meet some people there. Wales is a great value. The north of Ireland's a great value. England has more links courses and more courses, not just links, on the top 100 than either Scotland or Ireland. They have 9, I think, and Scotland and Ireland have 7 and 8. Changes a little bit as new courses are added, but there's some fabulous values there. Cornwall's a great area. The South and West is a great area. The Southeast is a great area. There's just some Scotland, the advantage of Scotland, Ireland has fantastic courses. I love Ireland, just got back from there, had 2 weeks of absolute sunshine. I came back with a tan. But the problem with Ireland is so many of their courses are farther apart just because of the topography and everything else and the geography. Where Scotland, there's a lot of courses. There's 60 championship courses within an hour and a half of St. Andrews. Not all are Carnoustie, not all are Kingsbarns. They're all fantastic. Not all of them are $600 a round either. So there's some wonderful areas that you can go and just immerse yourself in the culture and the destination and the golf, and not be a mortgage payment or 2 or 3. So that's kind of is. The other thing too is it's different over there. Cars are different, accommodations are different. They're a little bit smaller. Once you get 4 golfers and 4 golf bags, you're into a van, and it's not like a SUV like we have. It's more of a van, whereas 2 golfers fit in great in a car, and you can travel around and be a little more flexible with your schedule. So those are some of my tips. But I do recommend, if you're not familiar with traveling, to go through a tour operator or someone that has been over there and knows how to book them.
Awesome. And then, so my other question I have for you is, during the pandemic, as a golf traveler, what were you doing when you couldn't travel? Were you kind of going crazy because you've been traveling so much?
And then you just pretty miserable. I mean, I was getting to the point where I was spending 3-4 months a year over there, was actually in a position with something where I was going to go over there and really pretty much stay and do a 6 and 6, and that kind of all fell apart. So it was a long 3.5 years. the last couple weeks when I was over in Ireland and also in Portugal. Was the first time I'd been out in 3.5 years out of the country, and was just so happy and felt like myself again. Portugal again too. I was at a fabulous new course called Dunas, which is a David McClay kid. It's going to be his first one in the, continental Europe. It's phenomenal. It's a true links. It's in an area of Portugal called Terras de Comporta, which is south of Lisbon. It's a little about an hour and a half north of the Algarve, which is typically where everyone goes for their golf. Also to the west and north of Lisbon, there's an area, but this is on 3-4-story natural dunes. It borders the longest beach in Europe. It's fantastic, and it's an area people really aren't familiar with, but again, great value, great food, great people, great wine, and great weather. So, it's kind of my biggest suggestion to people is look a little further out. And if you are looking to book St. Andrews or Bandon Dunes or one of the big ones, you really need to look almost 18 months out.
Yeah. Wow. That is, so what are some of your favorite hidden gems that you found on your adventures that you can tell people about, that you want to tell people about?
It's not so much a hidden gem, but what's become Ireland's kind of Bandon Dunes is a place called Rosapenna. 3 links courses. It's family owned. It's lovely. They've redone their hotel. The new St. Patrick's by Tom Doak is already on the top 100. But what I found up there was on my bucket list for the last 15 years. It's a course about an hour north of there. It's called Critch Island. It's spelled Cruit, Cruit, but it's pronounced Critch. It's a 9-hole course at the end of the world. It's just so much fun. It's absolutely so much fun. And then I went and saw some other stuff in Ireland that was really fun. Wasn't on the typical American rota. Obviously, Royal County Down is. It's #1 course in the world. Hi, Kitty.
She wants to be a part of the podcast. Excuse me.
But they have a second course called Ainsley, and Ainsley was redone. 3 new holes were added by Tom McKenzie a couple years ago. It plays in and amongst the big course. So much fun. And for that too, Royal Portrush has one called the Valley, which is their second course, which is where Graham McDowell grew up. And again, they're fabulous. And if they were sitting anywhere besides 2 of the most famous courses in the world, they'd be a primary course. So my suggestion is you just need to kind of look a little farther, ask people for some of their suggestions. Anywhere in Scotland is fun. I think the islands off some of these have some fantastic courses. Off Scotland, Machrihanish, which is off the peninsula, and then you've got Machrie on the island. You've just got some wonderful stuff coming up, and Wales is wonderful. Again, there's so much there. My thing is, people always say, it breaks my heart. People will go, and they have ever since, if I can't get a guaranteed time on the old course, and it's almost impossible to get one unless you're paying double and triple. And that's another whole story for another podcast, but I'm not going. And to me, that's heartbreaking because there's so much there and it's so fun and it doesn't define your trip. The old course is wonderful. It's dead flat as a pancake. There's no real sight lines off of it. You don't see the sea. I mean, to me, playing Kingsbourne or the Castle or Dumbarnie, where it's big and rolling and you get fabulous views, Crail, where I'm a member, they're just so much fun. So anyway, that's kind of where I am. I mean, really, you might not get on the old course, but it won't define your trip to Scotland. Same with Ballybunion. Ballybunion's harder to get on than the old course because they deal with visitor times. And that's the other thing Americans kind of have a hard time with. Royal County Down, Royal Portrush, North Berwick, Royal Dornoch, Prestwick, Royal Troon. All these courses are actually very private and they allow visitor play. Unlike the United States, you're not getting yourself on LACC anytime soon. But they allow visitor times for 2 reasons. One, they view their custodians of the game and they should allow people to play. The other is obviously the Americans pay pretty much a pretty penny and they subsidize their dues subscription. The other thing to note too, when you're going over there, it is a little more formal at those bigger clubs. So you would never know it from the crowds that were at Los Angeles Country Club, but they have some of the strictest member rules in the world.
Yeah, yep. I saw that and I was like, wait, you have to, no shorts. You can't take your camera. You have to have your phone. You can only make phone calls, I think, in the parking lot, right? Mm-hmm. I thought those were fascinating rules. I mean, I've never.
Well, I can tell you when the Walker Cup was there, and I believe 17, and I was there, it was 95 degrees in the shade. Men have to wear pants. It doesn't matter if it's 102 in the shade. But the thing that was interesting, there is no shorts. And I knew enough that girls had to be in a dress or a skirt or a skirt, no shorter than 4 inches above the knee. But the Royal and Ancient, which was obviously putting on the Walker Cup with the USGA, the wives were over and they just thought, Sunny 95, I'm wearing a non-colored shirt and shorts. And they were all sent home to change. They didn't care.
Oh,
They didn't care. It's a little like Muirfield. They don't care. They don't care who you are or what you do or where you are, but they're very strict on their rules. And so if you're invited by a member at Muirfield, let's say, to go play, you are expected to show up in coat and tie. You change out for golf and then you change back into coat and tie for lunch. You have a lovely piss up lunch. They're very liquid and very yummy. And then you change back out and you go play golf again. But you always want to kind of ask what the rules and regulations are. Like I said, it is a little more formal. The first time I went over to Royal Lytham, I was escorting a group of journalists, and two of the boys had their sneakers on, which they call trainers. We were supposed to have this lovely lunch in the clubhouse. Our coach had gone because it was our last day to fill up with petrol, gas, and so they didn't have any shoes to change into. So we couldn't eat in the clubhouse. We sat outside on a bench where they served us on silver trays, but we still sat on the bench because two of the boys had sneakers on. So it's things like that. They still prefer that you wear dress shoes or hard-soled shoes. The hats thing is a big thing. And I'll be honest, even though Rory and Justin Thomas and all the boys and all the clothing manufacturers think hoodies and joggers are great, they're very frowned upon over there right now. Some of the courses actually have signs posted. Others that make a lot of money off the Americans don't have the signs posted, but they're not really appreciated, and they're not. It's kind of like wearing your hat in the clubhouse. It's frowned upon. So those are kind of few things that you just want to be aware of.
I was just about to ask you, so what are the major differences from like traveling in the States compared to traveling in Europe? I mean, you just said that there's certain etiquette. So what is more of like the etiquette for going over to Europe?
Don't be late for your tea time. There are member times. So a lot of times you'll pitch up, your tea time's at 3:30 and you get there early, obviously. The other thing too is some of the clubs in Scotland, they're getting better, but a lot of them don't have any warm-up areas. They don't have driving ranges. They don't have all of that. They're on smaller pieces of land. So let's say you go early, you're there at 3 and there's not a soul on the tee. And they're like, can we go off? And they're like, no. And they'll be like, but there's nobody on the tee. And they're like, well, they're member times. And they're very strict with their member times. They're allowing you to play, but they're holding times back for the members. And if your member, his normal time is 3:15, he doesn't really want to be behind 4 Americans that don't know the course. So they're very strict to the member times on situations like that. So that's one thing that you kind of have to be aware of, that you're playing at visitor times. Now, again, a lot of times if you're a twosome or a onesome, sometimes they'll work to help you find a member, or you'll find a member in a bar that night. There's lots of members of lots of clubs that are at the Dunvegans in St. Andrews or another famous pub in Prestwick or whatever, and you may be sitting next to someone. And if you're only a onesome or a twosome, lots of times people will say, well, come on out and join us. It's very friendly over there, but you just have to be respectful. The other thing too is they don't necessarily allow, and they don't really care how good you are. You can be a pro. They don't allow you off the back tees. So visitors put you on what they call the boxes usually, which is usually a member tee. And that's where you play. And like I say, it doesn't matter if you're a pro, if you don't have prior approval to go on the back tees, you play off the boxes.
Wow, that is so fascinating that there's all these intricate details. So what happens if you don't follow the rules? Do you get penalized? Do you get kicked out? Like you said, those two boys didn't have normal regular shoes, dress shoes, and
well, we got to sit outside the clubhouse and not go in the clubhouse. Typically, they're pretty good. They just kind of under their breath mumble Americans and let it go. Like I say, if it's not posted, I was at one private club in Ireland, in Dublin, and it was very much posted, and they're very strict on the adherence of no joggers, no hoodies. I was at another private club in Northern Ireland, very prestigious one, and I asked them what they thought because it wasn't posted, and they said, well, we will never sell them. Our members will never wear them. But to be honest with you, we'd spend every day, all day, and I watched the Americans come in with them thinking they were really cool. And basically, they won't say anything. They just, under their breath, will kind of go, same thing with putting your hats on. It's just one of those things, the more you know, the more you're respected. So that's sort of it.
That's so fascinating. And then you have been playing golf for a long time. I know this because you told me recently. So my question to you is, for a woman or a person about to learn golf, what's some advice? What would you give to those people that want to learn to play golf or have been learning to play golf?
Well, I think, again, I think it's anyone, a man or a woman. What I always tell people that are beginning is, one, the reason you have a handicap is because you have a handicap. You're not expected to make par. If your handicap is 36, your goal on a hole is 6. A par 4 for you is a par 6. So if you play it to a 6 and you get a 5, for your handicap, that's a birdie. So it doesn't do you any good to get mad because you didn't shoot a 4 or whatever, because you're not supposed to be. You just need to play to the 6 and then improve from there and feel good about yourself making the 6. The other thing I tell people is the etiquette is really important. So kind of knowing where to stand and what to do, being aware of your surroundings, and especially if you're playing with better players. But you need to be invisible. So you don't need to be good, you need to be invisible. You need to keep up. If you're out of a hole, pick up. You don't need to necessarily keep score every hole, especially when you're learning. The fun thing is just to be out there, but especially if you're playing with a better player, he shouldn't know what you're shooting. You should know what he's shooting. You just should be having a good time together. So like I say, what I think annoys a lot of golfers is when you're learning, you're not going to hit every shot. And I don't really need to hear why you think you didn't hit that shot for 10 minutes. You're just not going to hit it. So again, when I say be invisible, it's just sort of have fun, keep up. You're out of a hole, pick up. I mean, Stapleford invented Stapleford, the scoring system, because he couldn't score well on the second hole of Wallasey Golf Club. So he got so frustrated because his round was over before he basically started on the second hole that he invented the Stapleford scoring system so that you could have a bad hole, even in the very beginning of your round, and still be in the game. So they don't play metal like we play metal. They don't keep score like we keep score. They play Stapleford. They play points. And so if you're out of a hole, they expect you to pick up. They expect you to keep up. The average, unless it's a very long course, they play in 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And, when I play women's golf at Royal Liverpool and stuff where I am, it's 2.5, 3 hours. You're playing in twosomes. You go have your afternoon giggles at lunch. You play golf when you have fun. Don't get me wrong. It's very fun and very, competitive, but it's quick. You're out there to have fun and play golf, and then come in and do your gossiping and your talking and all that stuff. But it's a much quicker game over there. But, that's some good lessons, and just enjoy it. I mean, you just, and I tell people too, I get a lot of people and they want to go play St. Andrews or the Old Course or whatever. They do have handicap restrictions on some courses, especially the Old Course, because it takes long. It's like Pebble, and then it takes longer than most courses because it was built so long ago. The loop, as they call it, like 9, 10, 11, they're short holes and you can drive 10 and 9. So it holds everything up. So it's a longer day anyway. And people, think it's kind of like a black ski run. People that ski once a year think that they need to go down the black ski run. And sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't. But it's the same as that. You really don't need to be on Carnoustie if you really aren't a semi-proficient golfer. So
that's so fascinating. And then my other question is, do you have any of your favorite highlight moments of traveling? It could be at a tournament. It could be just, it could be whatever. What's some of your favorite highlights and memories from going and traveling?
It was a great question. I have so many of them. Um, I
You should
just
write a book, Dove. You should write a book.
title of the book. We have the title. I just don't think anyone's that interested in it. I would call it Princess in the Kingdom of Fife, because um, that would be the title of it. I've had so many great memories, and a lot of it is because I have traveled by myself, and being a girl with my golf clubs on the back, you get adopted everywhere. Um, I just, I don't know that I've ever, it would just be a 10-hour podcast that no one would care about. I just don't know any time that I haven't had a great memory. One of my favorite memories from this last trip wasn't on the golf course. I had a group I was escorting, and they were playing 36 at Royal Dublin, which is fabulous. They just redone their bunkers, so fun. But I worked the clubhouse that day. And literally, I had so much fun working the clubhouse. I knew everyone that had been there. I knew where the Americans were, where they were going, what they were doing. Met some lovely ladies from a place called Laytown and Bettystown. I'm on a couple of ranking panels over there. It was a course I needed to see. I'd never been to. They rolled out the red carpet for me when I got there because of these women I met. Met some great men from California and Canada. Met a guy that does an architectural podcast that's a member there. Just had a wonderful time. I think when you go, you just need to be open to meeting some people. I find a lot of times when guys are in their foursomes and their eightsomes, that's all they're in, their foursomes and eightsomes, which is great. But I also think being able to come back, meet a member, it's a lot less expensive traveling with members and stuff too. But whether it's the pubs or whatever, it's just, I just find it's a wonderful thing. And like I say, I've just got so many wonderful memories. Every trip I do, there's something that comes about.
That is,
So.
and that, so you travel solo. So what's the different, how do you feel traveling solo to all of these events compared to taking a group, it could be a guy's trip, a girl's trip. Why do you think women should go travel solo?
Well, I just think that, yeah, it's so funny. I don't think in terms of men's and women's trips. I think more in golf trips. I think women a lot of times are scared to go by themselves. There's certain areas, I've been to Morocco and some places in Africa and Asia and stuff where I wouldn't go as a solo person. I've been on sponsored trips or whatever. But I think the UK, it's just wonderful. You can, or with a twosome, you can kind of get farther. You meet people easier. People start to take care of you more. It's so much fun to travel with your friends. Don't get me wrong. But again, a lot of people go, I can't get a foursome. We can't get the fourth. I just had a guy the other day who goes, oh, our fourth back down. I went, and your point would be, I said, so I have a group traveling. I was actually working on them this morning, and they had 8 couples. One couple dropped out. They now have 7. One of the women might fill in their tea times, but they've left the tea time and paid for it because they're hoping to meet people. They have their greenkeeper at their club they were at it in upstate New York is now actually one of the greenkeepers at Royal Dublin. So he's going to play with them one day, but they're kind of like, if one of the women wants to fill in, or we're just kind of hoping to meet people. And I think that's kind of fun too, to meet someone and invite them to play. And I've never, it's kind of that, was it Will Rogers that said, I've never met a stranger or whatever. I kind of feel that way when I travel. Obviously cautious a little bit, but the first time I played golf in Ireland, it was at Royal Dublin. I'll never forget this. It was November. I was at a conference where no one played golf. And I went to the porter and said, I really want to play golf. And he said, well, where are you thinking? I said, well, Royal Dublin and Portmarnock. He's like, oh, right. Okay. Can you play? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not starting off there. But I'll never forget, it was dark. The cab driver was taking me out, and he's like, are you sure you're okay? A girl by yourself? And I said, oh, I think at the golf club I'll be fine. He dropped me off. It was pitch black. It was so funny. And I was like, okay. So I'm cooling my heels because I knew I had to talk to the secretary. It's not quite as formal as it used to be 20 years ago, and this guy came by and he said, well, you want to go out with me? And I said, well, I better wait for the secretary. I don't want to get in trouble. He said, okay, fine. Suit yourself. So went, and there's a place at Royal Dublin where the members jump on the 14th hole. And so these 2 women were there. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And they said, no, we're sorry. We're jumping on. And they said, are you by yourself? And I said, well, yeah. I said, it's great. I said, I'm having a great time. I said, oh. I said, well, do you want to play in with us? And I said, oh, that would be great. So we went, we played in. They took me in for tea and scones, and everyone else went to look at the Book of Kells, which I went to see much later in life, and went, okay, I had a much better time at Royal Dublin. And they drove me back to my hotel. And that night, I got a phone call from a girl, Kate McCann, who at that point was doing all the marketing for a wonderful place called Mount Juliet, which is just fabulous estate. The pheasants go flying. It's fabulous. And she said, Mrs. Kennedy was at dinner at Royal Dublin and our owner was there. And she said, oh, she met this darling girl that played golf. Would you like to come and see Mount Juliet? And I was like, that'd be fabulous. So a friend of mine's husband had a car at this conference and we drove down to Mount Juliet. And it's those kind of things that happen to you a lot sometimes when you're by yourself. I've never known it not to happen if you're open to it.
I totally agree, because I mean, I usually travel by myself when I go to tournaments and stuff, just because I feel you get that experience of you're only accountable to yourself. You can have these adventures. You don't have somebody holding you back per se. But I feel that it's so important and it's empowering for women to be able to go and travel by themselves. I mean, you don't have to be with another person. You can go by yourself.
Like I said, I bounced downstairs at 10 wanting to go by myself to a foreign country. So I always kind of had that little book. But it's been great. And golf is one of those things where it's fabulous because you can do it. You don't need a partner to play tennis. You can go out and play. Sure, there's plenty of times when I haven't found someone to play with or whatever, but it's just, and I'm lucky. I've seemed to get sunshine when I go over. I just had 2 weeks of amazing sunshine in Ireland and Portugal, but there's nothing better to me than being on a beautiful links course on a sunny day. It's a magical feeling. It really is. Or a parkland course. I mean, it's just different over there. And I just encourage everyone to go and try to do it. You can do it without breaking the bank. I mean, you look at the courses in the US. I live in Charleston. If you walk in off the street to play the ocean course right now, not staying at the sanctuary, which is, $800-900 a night, kind of like Pebble. It's $600 for your green fee and $125 suggested, meaning mandatory gratuity for your caddy. So it's $725. Pebble's $624 for the green fee, but you have to stay at the resort. That's before your caddy as well. So, it's not just Bandon keeps their rates a little bit better, but Streamsong's high, Kohler's high, and it's very difficult to get reservations now. Which is crazy sometimes on all that money, but there's wonderful places you can play that are, under 50 pounds, under $75. And it's pretty much the same experience. Playing off the same turf, you're playing, to me, it's more fun to go home to the golf club and say, I played this great hidden gem, Critch Island. It was so cool. It's this 9-hole course at the end of the world and yada, yada, yada. And then, I played Royal County Down's fabulous. Don't get me wrong. I love it. It's one of my favorite places, but to me, those are kind of fun things too, to find those hidden gems and have an experience and a fun story to tell.
So one of my last questions for you is, what is your favorite tournament that you have been to and memory that you can tell us? Or your funny, wait, let me rephrase that. What is your funniest memory at a tournament that you can tell us?
Yeah, well, that last part qualifies it. No, I will say for years and years and years, and it's changed a little bit, and we're all a little bit older. My favorite week of the year used to be the Open Championship, wherever it was. I have a group of about 20 guys, and they travel all together and stuff too. And it's just been up until COVID, which was really kind of there's a break in it now, but it was just one of the most fun weeks of the year. We have a friend that plays music. We'd all go hear him play music. It was a great tournament. It's getting a little more like other tournaments now where it's a little more restrictive and stuff. But when I first started going, it was fabulous. And there's a thing called, they all have, the European ones, they have the Bali tent, the Bollinger tent, which is no longer there either. It was the champagne tent. But to sit in there with Peter Alice and Dave Thomas and the old guard, when I first started going back in the late 90s, it was magical just to hear the stories and do the things. And so those were great memories at tournaments. I have fun memories from a lot of tournaments I've been to, but for a long time, for about 19 years, my favorite week up until COVID, my favorite week of the year was the Open Championship. So.
That is so cool. And then what's kind of like the difference between the PGA Tour and the DP European Tour? I mean, I know that there's similarities, but I know there's differences. But for fans that might not know, what are some of those more prominent differences?
Hey, one of the best tournaments to go to, and it's a little like the AT&T Pebble. I love the Dunhill Links Championship in St. Andrews. It's in October. There's not a lot of people around St. Andrews at that point. Obviously, the old course is taken out, but it's fabulous. They only charge on Sundays, so you've got stars, and a lot of them are UK celebrities and UK sporting celebrities. They're more cricket and football oriented than they are US baseball oriented. But there's stars, there's celebrities. They play on 3 of the golf courses. You can get up close and personal to them. You can really watch it. You're on Carnoustie, Kingsbarns, and St. Andrews. The DP World Tour, it's just a little more relaxed. The players are a little more relaxed. I'm much closer to the European Tour than I am the US Tour. They've changed a little bit in the last few years. I think the BMW at Wentworth is a wonderful tournament. As far as the media goes that we're in, it's very different than the barbecue at a lot of PGA events, where there it's a tablecloth, it's seated, plated with a menu and wine. So
Oh.
really lovely. Really lovely. It's one reason I like the DP. It's one reason I like the Dunhill too. I mean, it's just it's very different. In some ways, it's more formal, and in some ways, it's more relaxed. I think the players are a little more relaxed. It's gotten, like I say, the executive level's gotten a little more formal over the years. It was kind of a boys' club there for a while, but was great. I just think there's a camaraderie there because they all kind of grow up together. It's a little different. But it's fun, and it's not as expensive. And like I say, I mean, if you really want to go see, I think it's a great tournament. And in St. Andrews is the Dunhill Links every year. It's the first week of October. And like I say, it's not 100 million, it's not. The other thing too is it's just gotten so expensive. I mean, when it's $20 a beer at the PGA Championship, it's just different. Just different.
I was gonna say, yeah, like $20 for a beer is a little much. And
now the Champagne Pavilion at the Open Championship is not inexpensive, but it's just so much fun. Basically, you with 10 people and you go around and everyone buys a bottle and you have these lovely plastic glasses, but it's just so much fun. It's just a very different experience.
I was gonna say, and it's just making those memories. I feel like since I've been a part of the golf community, it's so much fun to be a part of. I mean, there's so many great memories. Just go and talk to people, and I feel that some people are just intimidated by the old culture of golf, and I feel it has evolved so much, and I feel it's very, depending on how much time you have. I mean, it's a very welcoming community, and I feel that they need to get rid of those perceptions of how old golf used to be is different than golf now.
Yeah, it is, and it's just I think it's fun. I mean, tournaments are fun. They again, they are a little bit more restrictive and more expensive now than they used to be. I mean, the Masters is a good example of it. I encourage anyone to go that's never been, because it's a very, very different experience, but it is a very restrictive experience too. You're not running around yelling, roll the potato out the top of your lungs. So.
Get it in the hole.
Yeah, I think you don't hear a lot of that in the European Tour either. It's a lot. You don't hear a lot of that. It's a little more respectful, especially at the Open.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's so interesting when you hear those kind of comments, and it's like it's a different atmosphere compared to what you just said. In the European Tour, it's more subdued, but I feel maybe that's just the Europeans are very more calm and collected, maybe.
And it's really interesting. I mean, one of my favorite events actually is the Walker Cup, which is in St. Andrews this year over Labor Day weekend. One of the reasons it doesn't sell, it's restrictive on tickets. I believe there's 5,000. There may be more this year at St. Andrews, but everybody all the clubs that have hosted or will host a Walker Cup, there's a thing called Friends of the Walker Cup, and they send a delegation. So you're walking, and the other thing too is you can follow them in the fairways as they hit. So you're walking down the fairway behind them, kind of like on the old time tournaments that you'll see on TV with Bobby Jones or whatever. But everybody you're talking to is a member of, Royal Lytham, Royal Liverpool, Seminole, Chicago Golf Club, Catanset, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the people that are walking around you really want to talk to. And I find that a lot at the Open too. It's very easy to have a conversation with the people that are there, and it's very interesting where they belong and what they do. And the chances of you getting invitations to go play with them are pretty high. So
And my last story for you is, what are you up to in the coming months? And is there anything you'd like to tell my viewers, my listeners, your fans, my fans, fans of golf?
well, hopefully I'll be going to the Open. I'm not sure if I will. I'm definitely planning on going to the Walker Cup and traveling this fall. I just encourage anyone that has a travel question or whatever, you can contact. I'm a senior independent sales consultant with a company called Premier Golf, which does wonderful trips around the world. My email there is dove.jones@premiergolf.com, or you can use my other personal one, which is dovegolf@gmail.com. I just encourage everyone to try and take a trip somewhere, whether it's domestically or internationally. Doesn't necessarily have to be over the pond. There's wonderful destinations in, the Caribbean, Canada, Mexico. It's just fun to get out there and experience something different. And that's the beauty of golf, is every course is different.
Awesome. Well, Dove Jones, it is so fabulous to see you in person, even though we're not face to face. So I am so glad to have you on our podcast, Tee Up with Kira. And thank you to my listeners and viewers and the fans of golf to be a part of this amazing experience. If you have any questions, please reach out to Dove or myself. If you need to get a hold of her, I know how to get a hold of her. Dove, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and all the viewers, I hope you all have a great day too.
Thank you so much, Kira. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure being on with you. Cheers.
Cheers.